Hello there, people on the internet. My name is Ben, otherwise known as Ben Cossey. Joining me today is a one Brendan, also known as Shadowgear6335 on the internet. Hello!
I like to poop my pants.
You didn't even get shitty that I took your... Oh, I've already sworn on the podcast.
Ha
You didn't get shitty that
ha!
I took your intro?
I thought it was interesting. I just wanted to completely ruin it.
Interesting.
It
Damn it.
is
Damn
it
it.
is it?
I've been planning that since I decided to do this. I was like, oh, I'm gonna mess with Brendan. He's gonna be so mad.
This ain't my
And you
show.
didn't even flinch.
I'll be.
Dang it.
No,
Alright.
I was caught by it. I noticed it, and I thought I'm gonna let this kid have his fun. Let's go.
Damn. I was like, I would have been so mad if you were like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, that was my intro. Oh, yeah. Anyway,
Hello.
hi, people on the internet. So you're probably like, Ben, what the hell is this? I don't understand. Well, I'm about to tell you. A lot of people message me and they're like, yo, I love the Bionicle Inspiration series. I love binge watching it and playing it as I mock. And I realized, like, whoa, if you watch this while you mock, how the heck do you... Because I mock for long periods of time. Maybe not everyone does, but that's besides the point. And bisses are like, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes long. They're quite short. So I was like, man, you go through those things super quick. So I figured, hey, I should make some hour-long bisses. This is probably just going to turn out to be a podcast. Probably not. I don't know. We haven't filmed one yet, so who knows?
Wait, we're filming?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
Oh.
face cams.
Oh.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing face
Well, I just said I like to poop my pants. I'll be right back. I need to look good for the people.
You look good for the people.
Oh wow.
So the format for these is I have a guest, in case you haven't realized. The guest will change with each episode. I don't know who the guest will be yet. I haven't figured it out, but obviously Brendan will be here because apparently we're in a relationship, according to Molly.
I mean,
I'm sorry that I ended your marriage so quickly.
he hasn't proposed yet, so like it's not official.
She's putting pressure on me. So anyway, basically, the format is I have a guest on. We will talk about one of their mocks. We will talk about a mock that they want to talk about, and then we'll talk about a mock that I'm like, hey, I think this is also cool. Let's talk about this. So at the moment, we're just talking about 3 mocks. If we record this and we're like, that was 2 minutes, let's grab some others. Otherwise, I have like questions and other stuff that I can ask Brendan. The questions might change. I probably should write some questions down, but I will ask him some questions. But the beauty of this, I think, is that we're going to kind of be able to get a bit of an insight into how other people build and some crazy cool techniques that they come up with. Because most of the time when you watch my stuff, I kind of sometimes talk about what I do or how I see other people doing stuff with mocks. But obviously between different people, that would change and differ. But it would also, other people would get different insights that I maybe won't see. And also we'll learn about how other people build. So, yay, exciting.
Hello.
Hello. Have I I said you were Shadowgear, but I feel like I haven't introduced you yet. So, hello everyone, this is Shadowgear, otherwise known as Brendan on the internet. Hi Shadow, how are you?
You can just call me Brendan, because that's awkward.
No.
We've known each other for like almost a decade. You can stop calling me
I've
Shadow.
not called you Shadow in like years.
Yeah,
maybe like the first time I Skyped with you. I don't know where that came from.
Yeah, what the fudge nugs are you talking about? This is
Podcast
insane.
is over.
But yeah, hi, I am Brendan, otherwise known as Shadowgear6335, one of the oldest fossils on the biotube or just Bionicle community. Hello.
Are you like more of a dome fossil kind of guy, or a helix fossil kind of guy, or even
So-
like a?
I'm conflicted. So growing up, I was a dome fossil guy because Kabutops is fucking, and Kabuto is adorable. I love Kabuto. But as I've gotten older, I've grown to love Ammonite a lot, but I don't really like Omastar that much. So I like both. I will say that.
Wow.
If I had to choose
know what?
one as a pet, I would say Ammonite is a pet. But if I wanted to choose one as like a friggin' like this dude's gonna kill shit for me, oh dear, I did it again. It's gonna be Kabutops. So
Nice. Nice. See, like, I'm actually exactly the same. Whenever I played, I was like, why would I pick Omastar? Screw that. I think, like, when I bought Fire Red and Leaf Green, I just picked Kabutops twice. And then, now as I've grown up, I'm like, I actually kind of like Ammonite more. But I actually really like Omastar?
Omastar, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But, I don't know. I feel like I like all the other fossil guys more. this is a Pokemon cast.
Every podcast turns into a Pokemon cast
It
after a certain
does.
amount of time.
Holy shit. Nice. Well, like 5 minutes in and it's already about Pokemon.
Yeah.
Anyway, should we start talking about the MOCs?
I mean, it's up to you. I mean, it's not. I can't. It's not my show, so it's your
Ah,
call. If you want to talk
that's
about,
right.
you want to talk about how I wet my ass for the next hour, then we can do that.
You've said that like 3 times. Is this like a really important issue that you need to discuss?
I do not need to go to the bathroom. I honestly don't.
See, now I feel like you
I'm just
need
fucking
to.
with you. I don't.
Damn it. Alright. I feel like we should start this, because I can't tell you the amount of times I've watched a tutorial or something online, and it's been like, why are you having an intro for like 20 minutes? Why are you talking about the giveaway that you're about to do? I don't care, I just want to hear the tutorial. So, we should probably start, and then get off topic later, because that's probably how this will go. I say we talk about the biker gang first.
Oh shit! All right, let's do that.
Yeah. So, the mock that Brendan picked is called Biker Gang by Brendan. Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah. So this is. Well, he told me to pick one mock. I picked 3 mocks that I consider to be one mock because I consider them kind of just to be a group.
To what I said.
And also very simple build, so it's like I lump them together that way. So the biker gang, which do I remember their names? There's oh god, do I remember their names? There's Skullcrunch, Skullcrunch, Lugnut, and Grave Robber. These dudes were originally made for the Bio Cup, the first one back in 2011, which is topical because there's one going on right now. And I loved them. I wanted to remake them at some point, and I did in this calendar year of 2017. And I wanted to keep them in a style of like an older style. So like for those who are aware of my mocking style, I want to say I don't have a mocking style, but I definitely do. Of like, oh, it's like greebly, it's chunky, it's like kind of somewhat fragile at times, like it's whatever, and it's complicated. Like there's a lot of parts involved and everything. And with these, I wanted to make it a mandate to have them look like their older counterparts, updated in that style of like 2011. So the reason why I chose this particular group of mocks is because I think it's a great example of like these look like old mocks, but they're using more modern parts, and they just look older and they look more fun. That's something like I said this recently on one of my podcasts where I'm like, oh hey, you don't need a lot of parts to make a really good mock, and I think this is a good example. Like there's fun and ingenuity within simplicity, I think.
Amen.
Yeah, having that like limit on your building style, I think it'd be a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of challenges out there of just like, hey, make a mock out of 40 pieces or something along those lines. Those are always fun.
Yeah. That's cool. Like, it's funny because when I first looked at these, I immediately got like hit with nostalgia because I remember when these came out, when the BioCup came out, and I loved them, and it inspired me to make something that I still haven't made, but I will make it. And like seeing it again, I kind of did dismiss the fact that they were very like older style of build, but like updated with new parts and stuff. Just because I was kind of like, it looks like they used to, like, whoa. But that's really cool and a really like awesome idea. Can we talk a bit more about like mocking styles? Because like,
oh yeah,
I've not done a thing on that, and that's such a great idea. And like, everyone definitely has a mocking style. I'm running out of things to say.
Well, I think I've said this before, and I think people may disagree with it, but I do think we are all good. Like I equate it to like being like a general artist, right? Like we all know how to do figure drawing. We all know how to make certain basic shapes. We all know how to do landscape. Like we know the basics of mocking and how to make stuff, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
Like if you told me to make an Anika build, most of us could make an Anika build. If you told me to make a Rahi, most of us could make a Rahi. That kind of stuff, right? But then we all have like it's like a Jackson Pollock painting where it's like, hey, he probably knows how to draw figures and such, but the dude just made his living making like splattering paint all over a canvas, and people call that art. That's his style.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's hard for a mockist to really pin down their own style. They kind of need like, I mean, I only say that because I speak for myself. I can't really point out what my style is. Someone at Brick Fair 2017 in Virginia mentioned to me that my style is an old mock page's style, which it's similar to. You use about 2 or 3 colors, that's all you use, and you just layer the colors together in a really haphazard way, and you get a particular thing. I like to believe that I focus more now on like color blocking, because I feel like since like 2012, 2013, during the Rise of Hero Factory, when you had to focus on a skeletal system and then armor on top of that skeleton, people started to be more cognizant of actually having like a main color and a sub color and a complementary color and all this other weird stuff like a traditional artist. But I think we've all started to get a hang of that, and it's turned into like, well, what's your style? Do you make long, thin MOCs? Do you make MOCs with giant hands and small feet? Do you make MOCs that are kind of bulky? Do you make babes as MOCs? Like everyone has a different style and a different theme that they work with, and I think that helps them stand out.
Totally, yeah. And like, you go, man, this time delay. Oh, It's fine. Don't feel bad. You are not interrupting me. Go on.
I have nothing to say. I wanted to hear. I wanted to pass it off to you.
Damn it. Pretty much what I was gonna say is like, the thing you said about like Jackson Pollock painting, of how, depending on who looks at that, they might be like, I don't know, they see like a Pablo Picasso thing or something, and they're like, no, I could have made that. Like, that's not that creative. That's terrible. Or they look like the Mona Lisa or something, and they're like, yeah, like that's really hard. Like that's art. That's shit. I swore again. Anyway, in my opinion, because I see a lot of people, they'll build something and then like they'll get comments and people will be like, oh, I don't really like it, and then they'll kind of be like, ah, they take it apart and they don't like it, and it's like, well, you should build for you. You should be, if you're happy with it, then awesome.
Totally.
And I guess that's kind of where mocking style comes in. It's like you could build really out there weird MOCs that maybe like aren't in proportion, or maybe have like funky head designs or like whatever. Like the Jockson DJ OK Son, that guy. Like his style is built like using pieces in really freaking weird ways to make like cartoon shaped heads and
oh yeah, for sure.
You know, all that sort of stuff. And like depending on your cup of tea, you might be like, well, I don't like that. I like Toa more. So you could like classify that as bad stuff, and like we all know that stuff is bad. That stuff's amazing that he builds. That's really interesting, like kind of how you can classify like mocking style as like whether or not a MOC is good or bad. And I guess kind of like, because I agree with you, I couldn't pin down like this is my mocking style. I don't even like, I know what that means as a concept, but I couldn't be like, oh well, my mocking style is using da 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 da. I just don't know how to word that, but I know visually what it looks like, I guess. So kind of like getting a feel of what your mocking style is would really help define like, I don't know, I guess what you're good at, what you excel at, and as well as just kind of, I don't know, defining your art. I don't know, like, do you know what I mean?
Well, I think I have not been doing this since like the past year. I've been reviewing my MOCs after I build them and post them, and have been noticing certain things like, very recently, I've been discovering I've been mixing system and Bionicle pieces into my MOCs a lot lately, and
yeah,
well, like once in the past year, and it has been like to good acclaim or like a failure. Like there's a MOC I made called Medic, where her lower body is all Bionicle and her upper body looks like it's all system, and it looks kind of meh. I still like the MOC, but I definitely recognize the criticism. So I think like this sounds really stupid, especially if you're younger and you really don't like doing this. When you finish doing a test, before you hand it in, look over all your answers, kind of stuff. Like critique yourself, and just be like, what did you like about this build? What didn't you like about this build? And try to incorporate what you learned in future MOCs. That type of stuff.
Totally. And I like, yeah, that's such a good thing, because like at the moment, like I've just started doing Photoshop stuff and like all sorts of new camera things. And I literally today just finished a photo shoot, and I got someone he's a friend of my brother, and he is like super into photography, and he was showing me all this stuff, and part of me was like, what did you just show me? And he's like, sorry if I like rushed over stuff, and I'm like, no, I think I got what you did, but I really need to like sit down, reflect on what you showed me, so that I don't miss anything. And I think that like an element of reflection is definitely important if you want to grow. Obviously reflection, depending on how you do it, can be boring or like counterproductive or whatever, but like literally what you just said of like just looking over stuff, being like, you know what, I really liked how I did that, maybe that didn't work too well, but like also self-critique, because you could really like something and then you post it online and then someone is like, I hate that, and that could influence your opinion, and you'd be like, actually, yeah, like that does look terrible, but you know, maybe before you post it, you're like, actually, I really liked that. So sometimes like other people's opinions could influence your own. And I'm not necessarily saying that's a bad thing, because I've often posted stuff and someone's given me critique and I've been like, you know what, I didn't even notice that. That's so true. That isn't cool. Well, not that that isn't cool, like that, you know, looks out of proportion or something. Or I have posted something not really thought about it enough and just kind of been like, yeah, whatever, I'll post it. And then like someone said they didn't like it, and then I've been like, yeah, it's stupid. And then like I look back a year later or something, and I'm like, actually, I really liked that. I don't know what what they were talking about.
That, to reiterate, rather
Yeah,
add on, or be a supplemental to what you just said. There are a lot of mocks that I work on in terms of revamps of like mocks that I thought people didn't like or I didn't necessarily like, and I'm like, I can make this better. There is a mock of mine that people really adore called Vespa, who is this kind of like bee girl,
yeah,
and I made her originally back in like 2010, 2011 as like this transforming little bee thing that looks nothing like how she looks now.
hmm,
But I wanted to rework her because I'm like, this is a character that never got a lot of love. I wanted to redo it and incorporate new styles and like work more with the theme of like, oh, she's an insect. Let's make her more insect-like as she goes on, and people really adore that mock.
yeah,
Like, I think that's been a conversation on my show before of like, is it better to work on? This is like tangentially off topic. I'm sorry. Um,
you do you, man.
of is it better to revamp mocks of older characters, or is it better to make new ones? The major argument for revamping old mocks is that you can compare the two and you can see your improvement immediately. Of like, oh
Yeah,
hey, you compare these two things and one's clearly shit and the other one isn't. But if you look at but making newer mocks, which is something I like to do a lot because I frankly have a lot of really ideas I want to flesh out. If I can try to incorporate it into an older character, that works out fine. But sometimes it's just a brand new character.
totally.
And you can see the improvement while you're building it. You can't really like if you paint like, hey, here's a Toa I made in 2029. Doesn't make any sense in 2009, and here's something I made in 2017. Like you can definitely see improvement. I hope,
Yeah,
and you can look at it that way. But if you look at an older character and then revamp it, it's like, oh wow, this is really cool. Oh my god.
yeah,
I don't know. I don't really have a strong opinion on either. Like I think like I've said this before. Like so long as I am building, I don't care if it's an older character or a newer character. If I have an
totally.
idea for either, I will do it.
Yeah,
So I really don't really have much of an opinion on which is better and which isn't. What about you,
yeah.
Ben? What do you think is better to prioritize in that situation?
Man, what a great transition, good sir.
Yeah, I took over your show. Look at
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's yours now. Yeah, I'm still getting the hang of being a host, so like, thank you. It's funny because I recently updated some mocks that I've done in that I built ages ago. I haven't posted them yet, but maybe by the time this comes out, some of them will have been posted. Um, and I can't remember if I told you this or if I've said this in another video. So if I'm repeating myself, I'll probably tell it slightly differently. Um, as I was building it, because literally what I did, I had two of the mocks that I revamped. The old versions were still on my shelf. Like they were dusty, I had to dust them off, but the old versions were still like there 100% built. And literally what I did is I took them limb by limb and then like, okay, I don't like this about the limb. Took that apart, redid it, and then I had a new limb. And then I put that on the body and was like, okay, I now have to just blend the rest of this new limb and just slowly work my way up until I got to the top. Done. And I probably did those two mocks that were literally like a, let's slightly redo this. They probably only took like maybe an hour, 2 hours, which is really, really quick for me.
Hmm.
Like traditionally a mock maybe takes me, depending on what the mock is and the size, but just like a normal toe or something would probably take me maybe like a week, but that's like on and off building. Whereas yeah, this took me like 2 hours, and it was pretty much because like it had sat on my shelf long enough, and I'd grown enough as a builder that I was like, okay, I know what I want for this. I'm just gonna do it now. Um, and also because I was really invested in the character and really liked the character, and I just written stories for them and stuff. It was super like I have to build this. I have to honor this character, which is cool. Uh, so in my opinion, I think there's a really cool like element of like time, I guess,
Hmm.
with revamping old stuff because it is that element of I can build something super quick and super cool, and I get a really awesome end result. Um, I can't help but feel some people may, depending on the mock, be like, "Oh, I don't actually remember this. It feels like a new mock for me." Um, so in terms of like an audience's opinion, that's obviously debatable depending on the mock. But I don't really think it matters. I think it's literally if you're happy and you're building, clap your hands, go you. Um, yeah, there you go. Hey. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I don't think it matters. Honestly, you do you. Really.
Yeah,
I think
honestly, like,
I think that just is what you can say about anything with Lego. Honestly, if you're happy with it and you're building it, Who cares whether people think? It's a hobby in which you're having fun. That's what it should be at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good jumping off point to go on to the next MOC. But I will say, I will reiterate with these particular group of biker gang dudes, which we have barely talked about.
Yeah.
I want to reiterate, like, you don't need a lot of parts to make a cool looking MOC. Like, one of these, the biggest dude here, Skullcrunch, dude uses Anika legs, but I added enough greebling and detail to them to make them look more presentable and make them look really cool.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of the techniques used in these dudes were older builds that I'd made back during the time in which they were first made. And I just reiterated on them and added some different stuff and added, like, CCBS shells and bones because I didn't really have those at the time I made these. So
yeah. Like that's awesome that you've been able to do that and just update it with newer stuff. I'll include some photos as well of like, here's the older versions and here's the new versions. Something that I really like, just what you were saying of like kind of essentially detailing out Anika limbs and then it actually looking really awesome. Like with Skullcrunch's like weapon, that's essentially what you've done. You've just taken the Anika, Hyuki's Anika sword and then like wrapped a chain around it and put like, spikes and stuff all over it. And now it's like an even cooler weapon. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah, it's just a big dumb club.
I feel like we should cover like small techniques that each of them use because I mean, like, that's. Is that what this is? I don't know. But we were just talking about advice.
You tell me, Ben. I'm gonna sit back here and just hang out.
Well, what I really like about Grave Robber is the little like kind of like monocle thing and the asymmetry that he's got on his head of how he's kind of got the one horn and then the sort of like almost I guess like robotic horn, I guess.
Yeah, it's I didn't like the sole idea. Like I made the head on that thing first because I had the idea of like, oh, why don't I use this mask and try and incorporate a monocle? Because like no one's ever done that before. Because like this is like the most like different from like the original dudes. Because like there was originally a dude called Grave Robber, but now this is like an updated like better looking version because everyone looked like butt. But yeah, I guess there's a monocle head on that thing. Like there's one false horn and one like real looking horn, but it's like but still. It's asymmetrical, but it's still balanced, so I wanted to do something with that, because the MOC itself is still symmetrical.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think it looks cool.
And then Lugnut. By the way, Lugnut is a name. Very clever. I love the fact that you used the playset, the Bionicle playset, like that axe piece for the for like his weapon, because he's a tiny MOC, and like it just fits it well. Like, that's really clever.
I've gotten critique about the ankles and how I'm stressing out that piece, but it's... I found that using that technique, it's blasphemy, but at the same time, like, that piece is still usable after a really long amount of time because it's still really durable. Unless you're in certain, like, weather conditions where, like, it freezes and it gets cold and hot, and it keeps flexing the plastic in that way. It may break it then, but it's fine. It's fine that way. Also, I love the fact they gave him a little ruler sword because he's technically, like, the mechanic of the group, and so his sword also acts as a ruler.
That's cool, like, the weapons being... like multi-purpose and like actually kind of character building in that sense. I think that's really clever. Speaking of character building, and this might be a transition into the next one, I don't know. I really like how you've taken a bunch of photos of them and you've actually posed them in really like cute, clever, creative ways that actually like reflect a level of personality. Like that brings the MOCs like to life in such a like unique and cool way, which weirdly enough you don't see too much people doing these days.
Yeah, I have in fact been kind of critiqued for it, where it's like maybe you should just take one picture of a MOC, and it's like I can see why people would like that because people don't want to look through a bunch of pictures, and it does make like your accounts look a little bit messy because you have like 14 or 20 pictures of like one MOC. But I've always been of the notion of like you're making an action figure, it's posable, show that you can do it, show your homework, have fun with it, show character. Granted, most AFOLs don't necessarily care about the character of a MOC, especially when it comes to Bionicle. But I do think having it something really expressive and really fun could be really good. And so that's one thing about making an older style MOC like this, because a lot of the MOCs I make now are posable, but like they're not like, you can't do like a crazy like knee bend or like a crazy like sword slash with a lot of them because they're more delicate, they're more fragile because they're more detailed. And these dudes are way more posable because they're using older parts, and I'm not being as critical and like filling in a lot of gaps with these, so I'm able, like, especially with Lugnut, like him and Grave Robber I think in particular are the most posable. And like you look at Lugnut and he's like, did that pose of him like with his knee down and his hand on his head like trying to look at something, and him doing a sword slash. Like there's some really cute pictures of this dude, and he's just really fun to play with as a toy because end of the day this is art, but also these are technically toys.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's move on to the next mock, which is a mock by Ben, not me. His name is also Crow. Yeah,
You?
I made
No, it's
I
you. You
made
made
this
this.
mock. Hello.
T-
Um,
Hello.
Kronos Omega made this mock, and the mock is actually called Crow, Master of Darkness, because it's his self mock. Dun, dun, dun. Now, Brendan, you picked this mock. I'm gonna let you start.
I did. So Ben asked me to pick a mock that I wanted to show off on the show and had things to talk about it. So this self mock of a dude named Crow, who we've talked about on the Gearbox before. People were like, "Who is this dude?" Well, here's an example of one thing he's built, and I don't know, man. This mock was made like 3 years ago, and a lot of the stuff that he builds is in this style. Because people say that me and him have the same style of just like we just take a couple parts and a couple colors and just mix it together, and boom, there it is. There is something just I don't know what it is about this build. Like it's like the leg design looks super solid, the body looks super like the silhouette looks cool. The head looks super cool. Like the simple red bits for the weapon and like the detailing on the shoulder looks super like interesting. And one thing about this mock that I think is super cool because it has a really monochromatic color scheme. If you look closely, especially like around the abdomen of it, you can see a lot of greybling detail that you really can't notice it on a first glance. And it's like, oh, this mock, and you keep staring at it, and you keep finding little things of like, oh, we did this, and you did that to fill in this, and oh my god, and I don't know, like it looks posable, it looks fun, it looks menacing. The shoulder pads look super cool because that's an older mocking technique that I feel like people don't use mock masks as shoulder pads like that anymore or as often, mostly because it doesn't really work out that well with using CCBS. But I don't know, like the fact he has a face but not a face at the same time, the simple weapon, like I don't know. Help me out here. I'm working on this.
To me, I think what it is, I think it actually has a few elements of what you've done with the biker gang guys. There's a whole bunch of photos where he's in a lot of cool dynamic poses, and the mock itself is just genuinely very posable. And I think he's done a very good job of just posing them really nicely. And I think because, in my opinion, there's such a huge element of like bringing a character to life that you kind of really need to capture in a mock, and doing so is not always easy and it's not always something people do, but when they do it, it ramps the mock up to 11, and like uh, it could just be like an ordinary system build, or not system build, CCBS build that maybe there's nothing too special about it, but when you give that character life, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, that looks really cool. And that can be as simple as, like we've seen in both these mocks now, interesting photos and cool poses, or I don't know, maybe just good photography. So I think there's that element of there's more than just the build, but I also think it's the fact that it's just very like nicely shaped. It's nice and compact. There's a lot of really good part usages, but it's also the thing of like it's not too complex. It's still very simple, but it's a nice like medium in between that. Like you can kind of tell what's going on, but at the same time you slowly see more stuff. There's a lot of parts that have very similar textures and everything just shapes nicely together. Yeah, it's a lot of things. I kind of see what you mean. It's a little hard to explain, but there is something about this that has a lot of life and personality and just...
Yeah,
is very, very unique.
like I keep coming back to this mock whenever I look for inspiration, or a lot of the stuff this guy makes I think is like fantastic, and it's a thing of like I look at it and it's just like the silhouette is just like it looks solid, it looks fun, it looks impressive to look at with all the different textures, well not different, all the similar textures, and different dude used oh what the hell, the not Slizers but the throat not Throwbots and Slizers are the same name, Robo Riders, the Robo Riders pieces for the lower arms, and I think like, oh, that's a really cool parts usage, but then how do you make the hands? And like he made the hands using parts that could technically work with hands, but people usually don't use that kind of style. Or dude used Bionicle Star's feet for this dude. And it's like, oh, you never see MOCs using those kind of feet before. And using a style I like to use more recently is like, let's use older Bionicle like pre-made parts like the Paraka legs for the lower legs, but then add some bits, behind that or in front of it to make it more detailed. And using older parts with newer styles to, have a really nice cohesion there. And generally, like the up.
I think. Oh no, you
no,
go.
you go. I don't say.
Dang it. I think that what really does this for me, I'll see if I can include some photos. His name on Brickshelf, I'm talking about Brickshelf, this is old stuff. His name is Muffin Tower. Um, and I constantly refer back to his stuff. And I think it's really cool. We've both like kind of talked about it now in terms of we both have like a specific like mockist or a specific mock that we constantly refer back to in terms of like this instantly puts me in like a creative mood, like inspires me and all that sort of stuff. And for me that's Muffin Tower. I'll include some photos of some of his stuff. And his self mock, I don't know its name, but it's a brown mock. By the way, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, Brendan, I'll like send you a link if you want. But his self mock is like a brown and like grey mock with a trans orange cow. But it has all this like it's in the older style of like maybe around like Metro or around sort of yeah, kind of like around the Metro period where everything was very like Technic based and everything was very sort of greebly in texture and stuff like that. And looking over those mocks now, there's this really cool like refreshing vibe to it because people don't really mock in that way before. Man, we've been talking about mocking styles a lot recently.
Oh yeah.
And I think that this mock kind of captures that. Like specifically looking at the arm, the upper arm, how it uses that like nice little bit of old grey there. There's a lot of that kind of like Technic, like a lot of Technic pieces there, and kind of gives that really like mechanical machine kind of vibe. And then that on top of a lot of like the smoother Hero Factory and mask parts and stuff. There's such a like nice like texture blending there, and Muffin Tower does it as well, and they both kind of share that really unique, interesting vibe that I really, really like. And I really think that that's kind of what that is referring back to an older style and creating it in a new and refreshing way that we don't really see a lot or we don't see as much anymore. And to me, that's probably what adds this to that. So isn't that interesting? Like referring back to older or even newer styles or blending the two to really create something like, yeah, refreshing and new and just overall really cool.
Yeah, and I think we'll talk about this with the next mock. At least I will. A lot of mocks in the Bionicle community nowadays are like the really good ones that are like held up on a high mantle or like put in the Lego house now. Are mocks that are just are mocks that are just like kind of static, like they're built to be in one particular pose. They have some joints, but they're basically meant to be statues. And
Yes.
I'm growing to be more okay with that as time goes on, but the notion of it when I first started to be discovered with it is just like, dude, what the hell? Like these are meant to be action figures. They should be able to pose and have fun and be gesticulate and like be posable and like I'm okay with statue mocks now. Like it's fine, but there's something about adding that all these messages you were sending me, by the way, it's all getting picked up in my recorded audio, so that's gonna be fun. No, it's okay. It's not a big deal.
I'm sorry, people of the future.
No, it's fine.
I figured I'd send Brendan photos of Muffin
No,
Tower
thank
so
you,
he
thank
knew
you.
what I was talking about.
Oh, I remember this dude. Okay, yeah, I totally know what you're talking about.
Hey,
Okay.
there we go.
But yeah, I think that is a style thing too, where it's like, do you want to make a posable mock that is really fun to play with like a toy, or do you want to make a statue? And
Yes.
to each his own. I prefer making action figures because that's what the toy line was, specialized in. If I want to have a statue, I'll make a system mock. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
But I know that's not everyone's cup of tea with that opinion.
Yeah, that was what I was that's how I was going to finish that is essentially like, if you don't want to build an action figure that's super posable, that's okay. You don't have to. You can build whatever you want.
Totally.
To each their own. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's about it for Crow's mock, actually.
Yeah, I think we ended that up very nicely.
Yeah, I think we did.
Yeah.
So the final mock we have, man, it's my mock, and it's my show. I feel like I have to pronounce it, but I'm scared to pronounce it.
Do it.
The mock is by a mockist named Red. I've had him on the show before, I think. Maybe not. Maybe I haven't posted that episode yet. Oops. But the mock's name is Hugh-Rock MOC the Space Smuggler, which I'm totally pronouncing wrong. How would you pronounce it, Brendan?
Cran Kimor. I don't fucking know.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Look, just look at the mock. We don't even look at his name. But check this mock out. Isn't it sick? Brendan, what do you like about it? Hit me with those fresh critique.
There are things about this mock I really don't like.
Really?
Yeah. There's one thing in particular, which is it's more of a moral thing. He cut the flex tubes for the upper thighs, which, for those who know my building style, yes, I cut pieces. I cut mainly like lightsaber rods for like whenever I need it on the go. But it's like those pieces he used were used in Life on Mars and Mars mission sets to like be these giant like transport tubes. And I think this technically is legal because it's counted as a flex tube, so you can cut it and LEGO thinks, oh, that's okay because, you know, it's all right. But it's like, I don't like the fact it's cut. And I also think it kind of conflicts with the texture of the rest of the mock. That, and it's also, I'm thinking of this from like an action figure standpoint of like, doesn't look like he can bend his knee, and there's a big gap. Like you look at the thigh and you look at the back of the knee, and like this big empty space back there. Other than that, like there's parts I like about it. Like I think the head is really cool. It's one of those things where I'm like, oh, I'd be interested to see the back of the head so I can tell how it was built. But this is again one of these things where he's one of those mockers that only posts one picture from the front where it looks the best, and then it may not look good from any other angle. And again, I don't like it, but other people are totally okay with it. In fact, most people are okay with it. And yeah, I think that the feet look cool. The general look of it, I think, is very impressive. Like, it's a really cool-looking statue mock, but if I look at it long enough, there are a lot of things I can critique about it. But before I really get into that, Ben, I want to know how you feel about this mock, because you chose it.
Ooh, interesting. See, just before we say that, nothing wrong with cutting pieces, nothing wrong with a statue mock.
Oh, yeah, totally. It's just my preference.
You want to build that? Go ahead. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you're welcome to have a preference, because, like, freaking, you're a human being. I really like this because I think that's such a very, very clever, like, genius head design. Using those, like, I don't even know what those pieces are called, but the things he's used for the antenna, which, like, aren't really flex tube because they have, like, two little, you know, connection points at the end. But whatever that part is, works great for a little, like, fly antenna. And then using those, like, new, like, shoulder pad pieces as the eyes for, like, compound eyes, that's awesome. And just the, like, shaping and everything on that is makes for a really cool head. I really, really like how he's used mixel joints on the, like, for the elbow connection there.
Yeah, that looks good.
Because he's used the, like, newer bit where it's, like, the mixel ball and then, like, a lightsaber rod coming out of the other side. And I've seen those parts, but it never actually clicked in my head that they would click on those parts.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I don't know why. It just didn't click. Yeah. And so, like, that to me is like, oh, right, really clever. So seeing that's cool. And I personally haven't seen anyone use that. Maybe they have and I'm missing it. But I think that makes for a really cool connection. And I always like seeing people use newer parts on MOCs just because, you know, you haven't seen it as much. Yeah. And often if it's in a really clever way, like the head design is, and like that, that's awesome.
So something I've noticed, speaking about nice piece usages, so the weapon he has on his back, did you notice that the top part of that, the trans blue part, are garage door pieces in trans blue?
Yeah, I think that's so clever.
I just noticed that. That's actually really cool.
That's so cool. I kind of like that it's asymmetrical because at the bottom there he's used like the trans clear, like 1x1 cylinders, which is cool. But part of me also thinks that would also look really, really cool if it was just two together. I don't know how well that connects though. Maybe that's illegal.
I don't know. I've been trying to figure it out because he capped it at the top with like a 1x1 flat rounded tile. So
yeah, he did.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, zooming in on the photo a bit actually does kind of look like it's a decent enough connection. I'll have to try that myself because I mean, essentially what he's done right is just he's turned that into a triangle, hasn't he?
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, that's really clever.
It is.
Yeah, another great example of using system in a mock.
Yeah.
I also like his little gun. There's a little clever.
The gun is cute. I do like the gun. I like. There's parts about this mock where like the torso area and the shoulders, like I think that looks really cool. But I look at the connections and I'm like, well, again, I'm a posability guy. So it's like, okay, can he move his arms forward?
Yeah.
Can he move his arms out? Looks like he has a pretty good elbow. He's got fingers, very nice. Doesn't look like he has much of any hips. Doesn't look like he has a knee joint. He has ankle joints because you can see the hand connectors there. I don't know. It's I don't know if we want to get into this on your show, but we talked about this recently on my podcast, in which we talked about more or less like using others' designs to help inspire others. And
Yeah.
I want to. So I'll give the basis of the argument because it's tangentially related to this, and I would like you
Sure.
to give me your
Yeah,
thoughts.
you're
on it.
happy to talk about it as long as you need.
Yeah. So the idea is like, as artists, the way that we evolve is by like comparing our stuff to others and being inspired by others. Like listening to this show, and the reason why people like watching the Bionicle Inspiration series is because it inspires you when you're in a mock block of like, oh hey, here's some really cool designs. Try using stuff like this, or like try using these concepts and ideas, and it gets your mind going, right? For me, I like favoriting and looking at a lot of mocks and getting inspired by them and like, oh, that's a really cool technique. I'll try this technique. Or like, I'm just going to take this arm design, credit the dude, and then turn it into something of my own. And I think that can really help people in a mock block or like generally like, oh, hey, I want to make a beast mock, but I've never made a beast mock before. How can I do that? And you go out and find something that totally works. But with mocks like this, well, actually, first off, before I get into that, I want to know your opinion on that matter. Like, do you
On that.
well, do you think
Yes.
yes, do you think it's okay to like take designs from others, credit them, or even not credit them? I think that's a, if you want to listen to that, listen to the Bionicle Community Cup podcast we just put up on my channel.
Yes, please
yeah,
do. There's a good podcast.
Thank you. Like, do you think it's okay to use others' designs to help benefit your own, and then in turn you'll probably inspire someone else, and then it just keeps mutating?
So you've hit me with like the best transition ever because I actually wanted to go into
Oh,
this.
really?
This is
Nice.
amazing.
Okay.
You totally have. I have 2 points on that. My first is, this starts off like seeming a little unrelated, but it's going to get there in the
Okay.
end. Not a lot of people watch the System Inspiration series that I did, and this is not advertising to go watch it. If you want to, you can, but the one episode I did on Castle, I spoke about a guide that one of the greatest castle builders in the world, Durfel Cardam, has made on Eurobricks. And the guide is literally him posting instructions on how to build his stuff. And if you ever want to look at his stuff, it is breathtakingly amazing, probably the best system you'll ever see. I'll include it in the link. I'll probably put a video up. I don't know, I haven't edited this yet. Not a video, some photos. And he's literally posting instructions. And the guide doesn't... The guide isn't just like, here's how I built it. It's also like, here is my process. So like, for example, he goes on about like, if you're building landscape, don't start with the houses. Start with the landscape. Go in the natural order that it would be in real life. Like, you know, the river would have started, it would have carved out the rocks. So build the river, then build the rocks. And then the path would have been trotted on over as people walked over it. So after you built the landscape, then build the path. Then you build the houses, all that sort of stuff. So like, it's not just an instructions, it's also a new way of looking at it that you would not have seen from just looking at photos of it online. And in a way, I try to make the Bionicle Inspiration series like that. Like, I'll often include my opinion or my thoughts as a builder as kind of like a... Because at the end of the day, you could just look at the stuff that I post on these episodes online yourself and do what I do on your own. But I try to put in my own 2 cents that hopefully you wouldn't get somewhere else. And in my opinion, because I've read that guide that Derval has done maybe 10 times, and some of my early castle mocks, I essentially copied some of those designs. Not brick for brick, but it was very heavily inspired by it. And now, like maybe 5 years later, after I first like built the stuff like almost verbatim, I don't look at the guide anymore because I know most of the concepts because I've read it 10 times, and a lot of my stuff is heavily inspired by what he does, but it's not a like verbatim copy anymore. And I learned so much by literally almost building the guide, building the mock as if it were instructions, and then reading his little tidbits and all of that. So I couldn't recommend more that people go out, find a mock, look at how-tos, whatever, and build the mock, because you're going to learn so much from doing that. Like, actually, experimenting with their style. Man, we're going back to style so much. Oh, it's almost like we planned this. Doing that, and like just being able to play around with pieces in new ways and all of that, you're going to learn so much, and that's so helpful in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
However, I definitely don't think from there you then go posting it online and being like, this is my mock, because that's just blatantly stealing. In terms of... So yes, I definitely recommend do that. Go out, steal designs, put them in your stuff, but by steal, I mean give credit. By steal, I mean play around with it on your own, and have a really good think about whether or not it's good to post it online. Which I kind of leave that in other people's ball courts if they feel they're not like blatantly stealing it or claiming it as their own.
Right.
If they're not doing that, by all means, you can post it online. But if you're kind of doing a low blow, then maybe you got to think about what you're doing. But yeah, go out and play with it. From away from posting it online, because you're going to learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the other side of that, where it's kind of like, I really like this hand design, I'm going to use that on my mock. Initially, I used to think very much like, well, they made that, you should give them credit. But then, like, where do you draw the line? And I guess, in my opinion, I guess because I'm not just a Lego artist and I now have started doing more like painting and other stuff like that, I've kind of started to realize how much other artists in other mediums have very directly influenced other artists. And a lot of artwork is kind of like, hey, this is very reflective of that person's art style, but they've then changed it up a bit and done this and that. So in my opinion, I think the best example of that is the kind of, hey, I built your arm design, I've tweaked it slightly, or like, hey, doesn't your arm design look cool on this mock? So no, I'm not against it at all. I think it's perfectly fine, so long as it's not blatantly stealing or claiming it as your own. That being said, if you actually came up with it and have never seen that other mock, and then someone's like, yo, you stole it off me, then hey, that's a coincidence. Who'd have thought it would happen? Right?
Yeah, but then again, to a weird thing of like, well, can you prove that you never knew? Like, what? If you need to prove that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
then what are you doing? Like, think about the hobby and have a little bit of a self-awareness of what this is. Like, we're all making stuff because we enjoy it, we want to share it, and have a conversation about it. Well, some of us do at least, and I think that's amazing.
Totally, yeah.
And I feel like, Elira has my co-host on the podcast has mentioned before, like, hey, stealing stuff is okay, just so long as you don't steal straight up characters or straight up whole designs and take it as your own, like Ben has said, then it's totally okay. It's fine. It's fun to, it's fun to go with a mockist you like, and be like, I'm gonna just straight up take that arm design and try and build it just by the pictures they posted, and then that could be a good learning experience. The reason why I bring this up is because you look at a mock like this, which I think is a very nice looking mock. There's only one picture of it. You can't see the full mock. Mm-hmm. And so I know how deceptive picture taking can be. That mock could be nothing behind there. It could be held up by rubber bands and glue for all I know. Not saying that actually is. It probably is not. But it's like, there's a bit of deceptiveness to it, but not even just that. It's also like, well, I want to see how you build it so I can try it out for myself and try and reiterate on it. And so if you're only posting one picture, it doesn't help that well. And I wonder if that's, because I don't know, Ben may have more of insight on this, of like, well, are people actively doing this, like posting one picture so they can avoid people doing that? Or are they doing it because it's more of a cleaner thing? I think it's more of a cleaner thing to do, just to post one picture and then boom, you're done.
Yeah, I would say it's more of a cleaner thing. Like, for example, like when I post on Instagram, I tend to, or even on Flickr, I tend to just post like one or two. And it's like, if you want to see a bunch of photos, you can check it out on this page, just because that's a better layout for that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. But also it could be an element of what you said of like, the back maybe isn't as pretty for them, so they just want to keep it how they want to keep it. It's
a matter of just like, I think mockists should post more than one. I'm not saying straight up take apart the mock and show how you built it, or show the back in great detail.
Sure.
You don't have to do that, but I think if your mock can be put in more poses, or if you want to show off more techniques you built outside of just the front, then do it. If you just focused on making a mock from the front, that's fine. But I have a really kind of cynical, kind of irrational thought of well, if you make a mock that's only good from the front, you may as well have just made a painting. Because you're working in a 3D space. Not saying every part,
Totally.
not saying every part of the MOC 360 needs to look amazing, but it should look presentable and cool. Like it should, like the front, the back of the MOC should look it's just as great as the front to some degree, or like look presentable. Just like, oh, it's just like a bunch of empty spaces and hollow bits on the back, and that looks kind of bad. But yeah, like you're making an action figure. You're working in 3D space. You're making a sculpture, so you should think about it in a 3D space. That's all I think about.
It's really interesting, and this is why I'm really happy I did this series. It's really interesting gauging other people's like thoughts and opinions on mocking and stuff, because like I totally agree with everything you're saying, but it's also interesting comparing it to mine and being kind of like, yo, I don't always view making a mock in those terms of like you making a 3D action figure. You should pose it from all these different angles and show off all this different stuff like that. Yeah, that's really cool. So like I like, yeah, that's awesome, because I hope that like people like when they listen to it can kind of be like, hey, that's awesome to hear like other people's opinions. Like maybe I should try building a 3D mock which you can view from every angle, or maybe I should try building a action like a a 2D model essentially where I only take a picture from the front and forget the back. That's cool. The thing I was gonna say, I remember ages ago, for those of you who remember Biorock, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, somebody posted a posted a comment on one of his videos, or maybe it was on some other platform, and they were like, "Hey, can you post instructions for this mark? I really want to, like, maybe that was all the comment was." And he replied and was like, "No, I don't want to post instructions because I feel like it's more fun to figure it out on your own.
Totally.
Like, if you are able to do that, you're going to learn more, and you're going to have more fun." And I also know a bunch of people are like, "No, I don't want to post instructions because like this is my thing, like whatever." And it's interesting because a lot of people do have very different opinions on that sort of thing. And I guess, look, I guess it is a thing of just to each their own. But I guess that's where what I was saying before of like, you're welcome to do it and not post it online, and literally just build it for the learning experience. Kind of comes into play, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I think I should do this more often, but like if I revamp a mock and I'm taking it like I would do a revamp of, I would do like a how-to of a mock that I'm revamping. So like here's a how-to of the old design, but now I have a new one, so whatever. But I do agree with that sentiment of like just look at it and try and build it yourself because that's more fun. Like that helps pick your brain. Like that's the whole notion of like the Lego movie, right? Where it's like don't build off instructions, like do it yourself, and that stimulates your brain more and that makes you more creative. Like I totally empathize with that. Like that makes sense.
Oh yeah. And also like I think that because it's funny, when I was a kid and I first discovered like Brickshelf and mock pages and all that, I didn't join the community for like maybe 2 years into having discovered those websites, because I was literally just scrolling through it and had like a amazing time just looking at people.
Oh, same here.
And yeah, nice. And I almost reckon that a lot of I learnt so much just from doing that, because I'd look at people's stuff and I would spend ages looking at it too, and it would be like, oh, okay, so that's how they did it. Like, oh, cool. And in a way, I think that's really helped with like being more inspired or learning more about building. Just because like from there not being instructions and it being like just staring at stuff and then figuring it out from that, I've learnt more of how they did it. Whereas maybe if it was the exact same mock that I've been staring at and learned how to build, maybe if they posted a how-to, I wouldn't have learnt as much. I guess I would have just kind of been like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, obviously, the parallel world where that actually happens, you never know. But like, I definitely think that's actually a really cool skill to kind of develop. Is to just to kind of like stare at something long enough until you be like, oh, okay, they've used that piece. Because I mean, I guess that's kind of what this series is. I don't know where I was going with that, but I definitely think that's very helpful, and you can learn a lot from just staring at stuff.
Totally, and I think making mocks in a vacuum. They're like I made mocks for a good year and a half back in 2007, and then I posted it, and I had like maybe like 20, 30 mocks, and they're all like a Nika builds, and they were really simple. But it's like once I started to share my stuff, and people critiqued it, and that's another thing. You need to be able to take some form of critique, and if you want to evolve your art, mocking or traditional art or painting or what have you, and also learn how to dish out critique, I think is also a good thing to do as well. Like And my main critique, I mean, point out an issue and see how they could probably fix it in context. Not just say, this looks like a bunch of flabby butt dicks. I don't want to look at this. But,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, sharing MOCs is a really cool thing to do. I think it's a privilege. It's a nice thing to have. I think, and I mentioned this before, and this does sound a bit weird, but I do think it's true. There are a lot of MOCs, like smaller MOCs, who are like, I'm afraid to post what I built because I don't want to have my stuff compared to other people. And I think putting your stuff out there's a form of bravery. Like there's a bit of boldness to it. Like, hey, here's my really cool thing, and it's nice having people like that because it shows a form of confidence. It shows that they're willing to improve, and well, I'm assuming things at that point. I don't know. I think it's cool generally just to share stuff online, and especially when you go to like a convention or like a public outing where you meet other MOCists. Like, it's fun to have these type of conversations with them because you can have those experiences, take that home with you, and try to apply it to your own building style.
Totally. And like, honestly, to all you people who post online, you should be very proud of yourselves because, like, exactly like Brendan said, there are some people who and look, nothing wrong with that, man. If you're watching this and you're like, I don't want to post my stuff though, that's okay. You don't have to. But if you do post online, you should be brave because you're literally putting your art out on the line, and that can be terrifying.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But no, I totally agree with you on that. Yeah.
So is that it for this MOC, Ben? Do you have anything else you want to say about it?
I think that is it for this MOC. I feel like I've kind of covered everything on it. Which leads us nicely into those questions I was talking about. You're welcome to go as off topic on these as you want, or to interpret them however you will. There's no right answers. There's no wrong answers. But 5 questions. I feel like like every single scene in Pokemon Sun and Moon where it's like, I want to go on the island challenge. What's that? And then Professor Kukamuka like holds up 4 fingers. He's like, 4 islands. And then later on, it's like, I'm going to go to the trainer school and battle trainers. He's like, 4 trainers. And it's like, wow, you only have that 4-finger emote, don't you? Like, Pokemon is finding every moment that there can be like 4 of them. Like, I reckon when you go to the Elite Four, I haven't got there yet, so no spoilers. He's probably like, you probably walk up and Professor Cookie's like, Ash. I don't know if that's your character's name or not. Ash, you've come to battle the Elite Four. And there'll be like an option of like, what's the Elite Four? And Professor Cookie will be like, I'm so glad you asked. Take off his like sunglasses and it'll be like, 4 trainers. I'd be like, yep, I saw that coming.
I'm very concerned.
So that's essentially what I'm doing. 5 questions.
5 questions. I'm very concerned that he uses all 4 fingers. I'm staying far away from that man.
Oh, this took a turn.
But you're using 5 fingers, which means you're using 4 fingers on one hand and then 1 extra finger on another hand. So you are stretching the limit.
We're going all in,
You're
Brendan.
stretching the limits of what this show is. So what's up? What do you got?
This show was never meant to be this way. All right.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. It's good. I think this podcast is going to be a very different feel to the old Bionicle Inspiration series, but it's an hour long. It's different. You should expect this.
All right.
So, my first question is, and I feel like some of these are going to overlap with what we've already talked about, so like, if you're like, you don't even want to answer that, whatever. Talk to me a bit about your process. So how do you kind of go from, I have an idea, to building it to like finished product?
I'll get a little bit more into detail because I like to ramble and I like to talk even though my voice hurts. Let's see.
Do you?
Generally, I think about MOC designs the most when either I watch a show or play a game, get inspired by it, or when I'm at the gym or I'm trying to fall asleep and I think about designs. And like that helps, especially going to, for me personally, like going to the gym or being active and moving your body, I feel like is a great way to get like your mind moving and it helps you think.
Just a little side note on that, because I constantly subtly am referencing a book almost every time I do the Bionicle Inspiration series, which I'm going to do a separate episode on that, so I'm not going to touch up too much about it. But that book actually references a thing, which I'll post the name because I've forgotten the name, but I'll find it in post. I think it's called Artist Brain Activities. You'll see when I post the link, and you'll be like, it's not called that, Ben, it's called this. But there's actually an act, and like Steven Spielberg does it, all sorts of like prolific artists do it, where it's the act of doing a mindless repetitive task that actually is when your brain is most active. So for example, when you're doing the dishes, and that's like a mindless repetitive task, Or like, for example, how a lot of people are like, why do I always get such good ideas when I'm in the shower? That's because it's one of those mindless, repetitive tasks. It's like you do this almost every day. You know, you're not really like, it's not that you're not thinking when you're doing it, but your brain kind of like ticks over into another world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you kind of can, do that sort of thing with your eyes closed. Or like some people when they're driving are doing that. There's a whole list of like artist brain activities, which I'll also include. But if you want ideas, do some of those activities because one, you'll get shit done. And two, it's actually the time when your brain is most active and is able to think kind of more creatively in new ways. So, sorry to interrupt you, but I figured that was a really good time for some teaching.
No, that's not,
bam, bam, bam.
That's totally fine. So like I think of an idea and I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit down, and generally what I've been doing more recently is like, because so I'm in a situation right now in my life personally where I work very long days and I come home and I'm tired, but I think of designs in my head during the day, and so I try to build the mock in my head beforehand. Or like think of a particular thing, like, oh, I'll try this, try that, whatever. And then once I sit down, I'll try that out and see if it works. And if it works, I'm like, oh, damn. So I'll just keep working with it. In terms of what I start with, because I mainly work on humanoids, mainly from the ground up, mainly because, and this is something I've talked about recently with Elira, of like, if you build one particular mock first, the mock is going to be defined by that first part of the body you make. So if you make the head first, you need to build the rest of the body around the head. Or if you make a certain torso or a leg design first, the rest of the body needs to be built around that certain thing because it needs to stay in proportion and it needs to go with a certain style. And generally for me, it's easier to start from the ground up. Meaning I posted a picture on Instagram recently where I'm like, here's my whip of legs because I start with legs. But yeah, I start from there. And the best thing for me, and this is like a general thing with life for me. If I overthink it, I fail. What I like to do, this hasn't been working a lot recently because when I usually like listen to a podcast while I build, and because I've been so tired when I get home, I just like fall asleep on the floor and then hate myself afterwards, so I get no progress done. But generally, I will listen to something in the background, like music or like a podcast or like whatever, and just zone out and just keep building and just like, especially with like a Bionicle mock, it's like, okay, I need to make an abdomen design. Do I want to use this piece, this piece? I always keep putting stuff in that place and see if it looks good. And if it looks good, or if it's a good fit, I'm like, okay, perfect. Now let's build around that. And then you move up like, okay, this is the type of torso I want to make. Or like, this is the type of chest design I want to make for this female mock. Okay, sure. You work with those type of pieces and then build around that and make sure it stays in proportion. And then generally what I've done more recently is like, I'm going to build this first and then worry about the colors later. Which is good and bad because it makes you construct a mock faster in a certain shape that you want to make. But then it's also like, well, now I gotta look for this piece. Or if you're lazy like me, you're just like, oh, I'll just order it on Bricklink and then find the piece like a month later in a bin. It's like, great.
No.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just go from there. And then there's a lot of mocks I have right now that I haven't posted, but I will stare at it for a while. And if I'm not satisfied with it, I'll go back and change it. And then once I'm like fully satisfied, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can. I feel good posting this now. Then I will post it.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that you yourself are happy with it before you post it. I mean, like often well, not just me. I know a lot of people do that. They'll be like, I don't know how I feel about this, and they post it, and then they get critique and like, okay, cool, now I know how I feel about this. Then they revamp it and fix it or whatever, or they don't. They're just like, oh, okay, that was what was wrong with it. I'll learn for the next time. But it's cool that you yourself are happy with it because ultimately that's where it counts.
Oh yeah,
right?
like you are your biggest critic. You should be mocking for yourself. Like it all. End of the day, the buck stops with you.
So. Yes. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, man. My next question. You kind of answered this, but I feel like there'd be maybe a little more to elaborate. What sort of stuff sparks your creative juices? Like obviously you said like you're thinking at the gym and stuff, or like you're watching a video game or an anime. Is there something specifically that you've maybe like built a lot from like one specific game or anime?
Oh,
or
God.
Is there something you've never told people that actually sparks your creative juices?
I don't. It's usually like when I'm watching like a one-off thing or like playing a one-off thing, I'll take ideas from it. Like this happened just this morning while I was eating breakfast. I threw up Hulu and I'm like, okay, I want to watch an anime while I eat breakfast, and I pull up an anime called Axel World.
What did you just say?
What?
You threw a what?
I threw up an anime? Did I?
You said you threw up Hulu.
Oh yeah, I threw up a Hulu.
Oh, I thought you said I threw a Hulu. I'm like, what? Is that what you call that?
No, no.
What?
I just turned on the.
Oh,
I wanted to watch an anime, and I pulled up a show called Axel
okay.
World, which I'm not going to get into detail. If you're interested, go watch it. It's a good show. But it's like, oh, here's
Mm,
a lot of designs from this particular show that are super creative, and I feel like I haven't built anything from that show, but it's like, oh wow, I'd really like to do stuff with that. Like keep designs in the back of my head and like trying to look up like reference art and like keep that there,
yeah.
or like you watch a show and you have like a certain character type or like a certain quirk and you mix that together. Something I always go back to, um, my mock Kairos, who is the golden black giant, like monstrous
Yeah.
looking like clock dude who has like pink studs all over his body.
Yeah.
Um, that dude is a combination of Yami from Okami, who's the final boss, Azrael from Undertale,
Mm,
and there's another, the final boss of Persona Q, which is a bunch of really random like these are from a bunch of weird games that don't mean anything together,
wow.
but like you take things from a lot of different media and then you try to incorporate it into one
Yeah.
thing. I don't want to just make a monk that's just like this dude's character, his father has died and now he must revenge the ways of with his sword made of dust and like his joints are made of sand. Like you don't want to friggin' like make a really random thing with a bunch of random concepts. Like you want to try and have everything mixed together. But
Yeah. Well, because I totally see what you mean. Like I have a bunch of folders, like way too many, where I see a cool mock and I save that photo and it goes into that. And I will then, if I'm stuck for ideas or I want to build something and I'm like, need some hand design ideas, I'll like go into those folders and be like, oh, well, okay, that's the hand design I want. Like I'm inspired by that. And that's not necessarily just like off a Bionicle or anything like that. It could literally be like, I found this really cool like painting of like a demon girl. And then she just had this really unique concept for like a back design or something
mm,
crazy. And then from there I'll go right on into it. And like I mainly do this with system. I don't do it too much with Bionicle. Sometimes I do, but I will actually before I start like go out and do research. Like I will Google, like for example, I'm about to do like a dwarven mine shaft thing for one of my next castle mocks, and so I have currently this massive folder of like here's all these ruins from Skyrim. Here's all these like fantasy mine shafts, and here's like actual mine shafts from real life, and like so I have all these different things, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to take that, I'm going to build that in Lego. I like this idea, I'm going to expand upon that. And so, in a way, it is that kind of like mishmash of stuff, but also at the same time, it's not, because it's like, I don't know the words, but I definitely get what you mean.
well, another good way is like if you want to make something that's more grounded in reality. Like I do research of like, okay, well, there's an old mock of mine I made called Fenra, who's like this like dark red and black wolf girl, and I remade her recently. And I decided to go
Mm,
into more story thing of like, oh, she has more of kind of like a Native American thing with how the name of her race works. Of like, oh, you get your name because you need to find an animal, and I won't get into detail because I'll get into it when I post the mock. But it's like, well, I
sure.
looked at different like religions and different cultures and worked at it from there. But then that gets into a
That's
weird
cool.
thing of like, make sure you aren't too offensive or make sure you don't get it inaccurate because you don't want to be an asshole.
Yeah,
But it's like,
sure,
but
yeah.
it's also like looking at stuff from the real world. I think is really cool. Like I feel like there was
Yeah.
a time when mocks that were based in reality or mocks that were based in like real world ideas or like history or whatever the hell were kind of looked down
Yeah.
upon because it's like, oh, this is Bionicles, you need to make Toa and Rahi and Makuta and Rakshi and Kitungu's big fat eye, whatever the hell, like just make whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm not gonna say it was just me, but like there were a small handful of people who were making mocks that were like, this is a ghost from the human world, or like this is something from actual space on in our solar system, or like that was looked down upon because you need to make Bionicle and keep Bionicle with Bionicle. And I feel like that's limiting the theme, that's limiting the building style. And I feel like getting inspired by
Yeah,
other
yeah.
things in reality also is a really big thing too.
Totally. And like I've had some really obscure references from reality. Like for example, the five Bionicle mocks that I currently have built that I'm gonna post very very soon. Um, I've written stories for all but two at the moment, and one of them, I won't say who, but one of them is very very inspired by a person in my life.
Oh yeah,
Um,
totally.
they were a very good friend to me, and so like a lot of the story is actually written in relation to my relation with them. And I think that's so cool because it's like, I mean, maybe I'll actually tell that person. I'm sure they would actually be really like flattered. But it's cool because it was such an obscure reference, and as I was writing it, I was kind of like, hey, this is really similar to that, isn't it? And then that helped me expand upon it more. And now I'm super invested in this character. Like, for example, in an older version of the story, the character just died off. Like in a cool way, but the character died off. And then I finished writing the story, and I'm like, I can't kill this character. I like it too much. And so from there, I've like, I'm not going to say how the story ends, just because I mean, maybe people won't even bother reading it, but I won't spoil it. But well, I guess I haven't, because I just said that they didn't die. Whatever. But now like I have plans to like make a new version of the character. I may even like change their color scheme and do all this sort of stuff like that. And I think that's really, really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I've given all this new life to this character, and I'm super invested in this character now. And yeah, it's already set me in motion for a future MOC, because it's like, oh, I love their story, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, Ben's totally right. Like making characters or like personality quirks or like whatever based off like friends or like family, like people have done that in art in general. Like that's a really cool thing to have, because that helps you stay invested with that character, because you can relate a lot of stories and personality quirks to that particular thing, and it helps you develop a character, not necessarily a MOC, but if you want to incorporate a character into a MOC or a creation or art or what have you, it definitely is a big boon to take your real life experiences and the people around you into consideration.
Totally. Yeah. There's an artist he's a photographer. He's not a Lego guy, but I'm studying him at uni at the moment. I can't remember his name. I'm sorry. I'll probably post it in post. But essentially, like, he was in an artist block for ages, and he was getting super frustrated, and so he ended up eventually just taking photos of his family and his house. And as a result, like, he had like scrolling through the album of those photos. If you want, I'll post a link in the description. They're actually really good photos. They're awesome. They like tell a huge story. They're like, I really enjoy looking at those photos. And it was literally that. He was in an artist block, and he was like, guess I'll just take photos of what's around me. And he got really good results out of it.
Nice.
So yeah. Yeah. Next MOC. Thank you for answering the last one. Next MOC. Next question.
Yes.
What is your favorite MOC and why?
Like ever?
Yeah, man.
Oh god.
Here on the Not Gearbox podcast, MOC Talks, what have I called this? Bio Conspiracy Series MOC Talks. We ask the tough questions.
Okay. I'm gonna request a.
And look, I know how hard it is to pick favorites if you want to just sort of be like, well, this one's pretty close. I will go with him. I will be that guy, and I'll let you do that. But it sounded like you had an answer before I said that, so you have to go with that.
Well, it didn't necessarily an answer. I had requests. Could you ask me another question while I look for an answer to this question? Because I'm trying to refresh my memory.
All right. The next question was, by the way, for those of you who are like, these are interesting questions, Ben. What made you think of these? I'm about to answer that. I like kind of listening to the Gearbox and listening to a whole bunch of other things and just general questions. That's right, I listen to your podcast. I care. And listening to like just general questions that I've been asked a lot. I've sort of like compiled all those kind of questions that I always hear all the time, and put them into these questions. And so hopefully, like, because maybe people don't answer those questions, or, whatever. Maybe this will answer it for you. Huzzah. So the next question, Mr. Brendan Mann, what's the best piece to use? What piece do you just use all the time? Maybe not like the best piece to use ever, just like a part that you really like. And you're like, oh, I need it for this MOC.
Oh, jeez. It's not a tough question. It's like, well, mostly Technic, but I'm trying to think like what piece do I use in Technic the most. I want to say T-bars that are used for hands and other such details. I want to say Exoforce hands, very big help.
Yes.
Very good. I want to say, fuck me. I want to say, I don't know I don't know the actual name of this piece. I feel like I should. The piece that is a pin, it's a pinhole, and then a 90-degree turn, and then an axle hole.
Yes, I know the one you
mean.
mean.
That piece.
I'll put a picture up of what you mean. I know the one you mean. don't know what you call that.
Ah, thank you. Yeah, there's that. God, it's so difficult. Because I'm just thinking like the pieces I use the most.
Yeah.
But spicy meatball. Spiciest of meatballs.
Ooh.
I'm trying to think of one more like crucial piece.
And
I won't
nailed this question. You just asked it
say.
once. You answered like 12 times.
I guess go with the easy answer and just say ball joints.
Oh, I knew it. Nice. Yeah, I'll let you say Bulger. That's alright. Nice. You answered that like 12 times. Like, go you.
There's.
Did you have the favorite mock and why?
I'm having a hard time picking a favorite, but
Alright,
I'm.
don't worry, man. I got
I'm
you.
gonna pick one.
I got the next question.
I'm
Oh.
gonna pick one.
Okay.
Let's do this. I'm gonna send you a hot link.
Oh no, we're gonna hear the beep boops.
Beep boops. Okay. This may. I don't know if this is too risque for your show. Well, it's not risque. Risque. We've talked about this before in the Gearbox, but he is one of my favorite MOCs, and this particular revamp of this MOC is a really big favorite of mine.
Oh, it's Huge Bricks.
Huge Bricks. The MOC is called Huge Bricks, and this is his most well-known MOC called Kiri, who is a kind of like brown, kind of like, I guess like she's an animal girl, but I don't necessarily know what animal. But like the reason I like this MOC, this particular version of the MOC, is that it's very expressive. Like, yes, it's very, very feminine, very curved, and I am certainly a fan of those kind of MOCs. But it's also a matter of like it's very expressive, and the build itself, like it looks messy in some parts, but the build itself just looks fun to mess around with, and it's like the hair for the ponytail in particular. A lot of small parts used to make that ponytail, but it's so expressive. Like there's one picture in here where it's wrapped around her head and it's kind of like covering up her face. Like it's kind of cute. But the fact that it's able to do that, I think, is really amazing, and it's still posable enough to like fling in the air and everything. And also like
it's kind of the stuff you were saying before of like, when a mock has a whole bunch of photos and is taken in what's the word? It's like has a lot of life to it because of those photos, then it's automatically just like it's just so much cooler,
Also, he made power armor for this thing that was not necessary, but it just looks really cool. And I like MOCs that have power armor.
Oh yeah, there I just saw the photo of that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I could sit here for days and talk about
cool.
some of my favorite MOCs, but this is just one in particular I come back to sometimes. I'm just like, this is just a really fun looking toy.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, nice. Final question. What is your favorite set?
My favorite set? Oh God.
Yeah.
Bionicle set or like any Lego set?
I'll leave that to you.
Well, I'll go with Bionicle for now until I think of a system set. I'm thinking my favorite Toa set ever is probably either Nuju Metru or Unuamata. My favorite Titan is Nadiki, even though no one likes Nadiki, but I really love Nadiki. My favorite type of Matoran sets were the the Koli Matoran. I love them.
I love Nudiki. Why would people not like Nudiki?
I don't know, man. I have no idea. I wish I knew, but I don't. My favorite Lego set, I'm trying to think of like the one I kept built and the one I had the most fun with. Is it cheating if I say all of Mixels?
No. That's a great answer.
Because I think you and I have talked about this personally. Like the Mixels, I think were awesome parts packs, but also just like really fun, creative builds that like really expressed what Lego was about.
They totally were, yeah.
And I love the Mixels. I could be a weirdo and just be, well, not weirdo, but it'd be easy answer. Like my first Lego set ever, which was, well, the first Lego set I ever got in a store. Before then, I always got like garage sale and like yard sales. Found them there. It was an Alpha Team set that was this like truck that had treads on it, and it had a hook wench on it, or hook winch, a winch, not a wench. There's no woman on there. Um, and it had a submarine. It was like it had like a little trailer for a submarine, and the winch would come out, and it would drop down a submarine, and it had like a little like hook and string to lower it and raise it.
Oh yeah, I remember the one. I love that set.
That I still love that thing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun. That is those are my answers. More people should love Nadiki, but they don't.
I don't get that at all. Nadiki was great. Fight us. Don't fight
It was
us.
awesome.
Build MOCs, not hate. I don't know. Anyway, cool. Those are my questions, and I have one more question because this is like I said. These are all the. I know I said 6, so there's a bonus question. Because I said that like, yo, these are questions that people tend to ask a lot. Do you have instructions for that MOC?
For the MOC I posted, the biker gang.
Just that MOC. You know, just that MOC.
Oh, you're being an asshole.
Yes, I'm being an asshole. Thank you.
I have some instructions on my channel of things. Not
Really?
a lot of things. Well, there's a how-to for Namaste. I think there's a how-to for Minion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a how-to on arm designs, which was going to be a series of like, here's an episode where I make here's how-to on some arms. Here's a how-to on some legs. I didn't really do anything with that.
Nice. You should do that. That sounds great.
Yeah. Also, I have a question for you.
Oh, ooh. Yeah.
Did you build this? Is it made of Duplo? Is that Mega Blocks? Did your mom make that?
Is that a set?
Is that a
yes,
set?
I built. Yes, I built that.
Oh, that's cool. Can I buy it?
Can you buy it?
I'll give it to you for like $50.
I saw someone do that once. Someone was like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave mock pages. Bye," and they were like, "Here's all the Lego I'm selling," and it was like maybe a grand's worth of Lego. Like it was a lot. And some guy commented like, "I will give you $50 for that." It was like, that's not worth $50 at all.
No.
For those of you who haven't been to a convention, please do, because one, they're super fun and you'll meet some very like-minded and great people. But the comments from the public, you'll hear the same question 50,000 times.
Oh yeah. All the time.
Mm-hmm. My favorite
I'm
one
gonna
is,
give you a little
where are
critique.
the toilets?
Oh yes. Where are the toilets? Where can you find them? Open my mouth.
Oh.
There you...
So, speaking of open mouths, I don't know. That does it for the podcast? Or it sounded like you had one more question, Mr. Brendan Mann.
Well, I had a critique for you.
Oh.
I think if you're going to ask a question like, what's your favorite MOC, I think you should tell them that ahead of time.
Yeah, I'll do that for the next episode.
Otherwise, it's fine. I mean, I understand you want to surprise them, like, I totally get that, but, like, that's the one question where I'm like, fuck, dude.
You know,
like,
I'm surprised the direction you took that. I meant your own MOC. I meant, like, Tower Shadow's my favorite MOC. You know, like, I thought, I meant that.
Well,
but I was happy with that answer.
Well... I guess bonus question.
Bonus.
To give an answer for that. Oh God.
I have a theory as to what it is.
Okay. Yes.
No, damn it, you go.
I was gonna say either Shadow or Migrator.
Migrator, really?
Yeah. Also, my phone went off. I apologize.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, mostly because I mentioned this before. Migrator is a MOC that is like really special for me on twofold. One, because I think the design is really cool, like this Silver Centaurian dude that has like this 6 colors of a color wheel, and it's integrated into his body. I love that. Also, like, that was a MOC I made after like a 6-month MOC block where I was this close to quitting mocking because I thought I just didn't have it in me anymore. Yeah, well. And I finally, like, I listened to one of my favorite albums ever by Arion, which I recommend you listen to his stuff. I listened to that and I'm like, I'm gonna fucking build.
Nice.
And I did.
Nice.
And I got over my hump. Like, it was amazing. I loved it.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
So, and also Shadow, for like the current version of Shadow, is the best version of him ever. I think it's really well built. I love it.
Yeah.
But it's also like, that dude's been my self-mock for almost 10 years now.
Yeah.
or just like been a character of mine for 10 years. Like here's a lot of sentimentality to it. And like I never took him apart. He's always been around. He's the face of my channel for the longest time.
Mm,
Like he just means a lot to me on a sentimental level, and also the build is really cool.
that's cool.
So
Side note,
there you go.
just two
Yes.
things. Well, just to close that gap, my guess was that you were going to say Shadow was your favorite MOC. My question though, with the new version of Shadow you have, which by the way I love, and I don't think it looks like Overwatch. I think it's fantastic. Is that like, did you literally take the pieces from that? Sorry, from the old Shadow and build that, or do you have both the old Shadow and this guy?
I have the old one and the new one.
Oh, that's even cooler. Oh, that's
The
so
only difference is I took the cape off the old one and put it on the new one, so the old one doesn't have a cape. But
cool. Okay.
otherwise, yeah, I kept it together because one, I'm still a sucker that keeps stuff built, so
Yeah, me too.
I kept the 2010 version of Shadow still together, and I have the new 2016 version together.
That just makes me happy.
Yeah, it's nice.
That's cool. That's really cool. You know what I realized the other day? Just because you said Shadow was like 10 years old, I was thinking the other day. I'm like, when did I make Kossi? Kossi is 7 years old.
Yeah,
That blows my mind.
I made Shadow on October 16th, 2007.
What year did Hero Factory come out? Do you know?
Late 2010, I believe.
Yep. See, 7 years old. Because
Yeah.
literally, I went to the shops, bought Surge, went home and built Kossi.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Dang.
Yeah, man.
Dang. I'm actually going to throw up a picture. Here's version 1 of Kossi. I posted it on mock pages pretending it was a Mark Surge revamp. Because I was like, I'm not happy with this. And then I built this version of Kossi. And then new Kossi. Boom.
You totally reminded me that his name is Mark.
Yeah, it's like Preston Stormer and I don't remember
William
the others.
Furno.
William
It was
Furno.
William Furno, Duncan Bulk,
That's it.
Jimmy Stringer.
That's it. Jimmy. His name
Uh,
is Jimmy.
Jimmy Stringer. I forget Breeze's name.
Natalie.
Natalie. Oh Christ, Natalie Breeze, and then Mark Stafford.
Did Evo and Rocco and the other one next? Did they have names?
Rocco. His name is it? Oh wait, is his name? Wait, hold on.
Wasn't his name Rocco? Am I saying that wrong?
I don't remember.
We should know this. Holy crap.
If you know the names of all the Hero Factory characters, post them in the comments
Yeah.
below.
Yeah.
And don't go on Brickset. Go on, I don't know, Lugnet or something. You do your due diligence. I don't know. Whatever.
Why wouldn't you go on
I'm
Brickset?
tired.
Brickset would be the perfect place. I don't think
Of course,
Lugnet does
but
that.
I want to make it harder for them.
Oh. Oh, do check out Lugnet if you want. Find a local lug near you. You know what I did the other day, Brendan?
Yeah.
This has just become the talking cast now, which is fun. So there's 2 lugs in my area. For those of you who don't know what a lug
Okay.
is, it stands for Lego User Group. You probably have one in your area. It's a bunch of other Lego people who come together and build. And you can also get sick stuff, because Lego sends sets to lugs for free. So we have 2 lugs. One is called Plug, Perth Lego User Group. The other one is called WABS, WA Brick Society. WABS goes to like this train show every year and has like a Lego table there. They're alright, I don't mind them. The other one, Plug, is more like a Facebook group. They're cool, but they don't really mock so much. A lot of them do sets. And kind of because of that, I've kind of been like, yeah, they're alright, but like, if they mainly build sets, like I don't really want to like, go to any of their like meetings or whatever. And the WUBS people are like an hour drive, so I'm like, I don't want to go to theirs. Anyway, they had like a lug meeting, which they just called like a build night. It was essentially just like come and build, talk with people. And it was like 10 minutes away from me, and I was like, oh, alright, I may as well go. And I had a damn good time.
Nice.
It was really worth it. Like, I built 2 Lego sets that I've been meaning to build. I had a nice chat with people about Lego. I even bought some stuff off some people. I had a really fun time. So if any of you were like, I don't want to go to the lug stuff near me, I was totally in your ballpark, and I slightly regret not going sooner, because it was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, look into your lugs near you guys.
So Ben, I think this is a good jumping off point to start ending the show.
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you very much for watching. I hope you very much enjoyed this podcast. Let me know what you think. This is the first episode after all. I will happily get some further guests on. I'm not going to say who because spoilers. If you have questions that you want to ask, go ahead. Maybe I should I do like you and ask questions on this podcast? I don't know. I mean, like, I have the set list of questions that I said to Brendan, which I'll probably repeat in future episodes. But if you're like, hey, why don't you make this one of the regular questions? Or, well, yeah, hey, let me know in the comments. Do you want to have a question and answer submission thing like the Gearbox? I mean, I don't want to just copy the Gearbox, and I mean, I guess this really isn't in a sense.
I think it doesn't matter whether you copy it or not. I feel like whatever you want to, make the kind of show that you would like to listen to.
Yeah. Right. Okay. But yeah, hey, people have questions. They can, if people want to see that, let me know and send them my way or whatever. I don't know. I would say submit mocks to this, but this one is kind of different in the sense that it's more geared towards the guest. But if you have mocks that you want to submit to the normal Bionicle Inspiration series, please do. This is kind of a sister show to that, so definitely check that out if you're like, wait, what was this Bionicle Inspiration series you're talking about? I just came here for a podcast. Go check that out. It's a series where I just sort of talk about mocks in the community and highlight specific elements and, give you some ideas and all that sort of stuff. Essentially what this was, but less long and without Brendan.
Hello.
Yeah. So, thanks for watching, guys. This guy here, Brendan Shadowgear6335, man, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, if you want to find me, I'm more active on my Instagram, which is Shadowgear6335. If you want to find my YouTube, which is another bread and butter, although I really don't post that often except for posting the Gearbox podcast,
Yep.
which a lot of people adore. Head over to I would say go to Shadowgear6335 YouTube account, but that doesn't exist anymore. If you search the Gearbox podcast or search Shadowgear6335, you will find my stuff very easily.
Yeah.
And that goes for any other social media, like, Twitter, DeviantArt, whatever the hell. Like, just search my name and you will find it. It will pop up with ease.
Mm-hmm. If you're lost and you look, then you will find me. Time after time.
What did you just reference?
It's a song. I don't know who sings it, but it's that song.
Oh, damn, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so stupid I didn't recognize that.
You're not stupid. Don't say that.
Dad? Oh, okay.
Anyway.
Oh,
thank you. Hot news.
I was just going to thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
Thank you so much, good sir. It was a pleasure having you.
Always is.
Mm-hmm. All right. I think that's it.
All right. End your show, bastard.
No, I'm not going to end it. No, I'm going to end the show. Bye!
Oh.
How do we do this? Do we like...
Stop recording! Stop!